Since last week, I've been wrestling with a thought. See, I've been operating on the assumption that society is divided on transgender issues and that we need to find a way to be able to get closer together in our discourse. I've always made the assumption that individuals on both sides of this debate want to get closer together and that it's really just a matter of finding that common ground. I like to see the best in people like that. And now I have a sneaking suspicion that I have been terribly naive. You see, last week a prominent transgender activist made a post asking about what the government could do to reduce hate towards transgender individuals. I was really happy to see this post. I noticed there were only a few comments and I had a lot of thoughts I wanted to throw into the conversation. I suggested that our first move is to take a step back and look at how we got where we are now. I put forward that if we make generous assumptions and assume that all individuals merit our attention, then maybe we'll be able to find some common ground in this discourse. Because for the record, I absolutely agree that transgender hate is increasing and that this is a huge problem. But I also think that in order to get to the bottom of this, we need to listen to why this has come to be in the first place. I mentioned that I've had really great success in building relationships with people who may not necessarily agree with my transition at all. I have received so many messages from people telling me that my videos and the things that I'm posting have helped them to soften their attitude towards the transgender community. They tell me that my welcoming demeanor and willingness to engage in these topics with candor and authenticity has helped them to view the transgender community in an entirely different light. I ended my post by saying that we need less loud transgender activists and more unremarkable transgender individuals like myself to humanize what it is to be transgender. Quick side note, I'm currently at the Capitol. My comment proved to be very popular. In fact, I actually gained more likes and engagement than the original post. To my disappointment though, the individual who started the thread did not even acknowledge the comment I made or the hundreds of sub-comments that were placed underneath what I expressed. This really surprised me. I actually have a lot of respect for the activist who made the original post, and I would have thought that a comment that garners hundreds of likes and attention would be something you'd want to engage with. After all, not to brag, but the second most popular comment on her post had like 5 likes. And then, for me, it suddenly clicked. Of course she's not going to respond to my post. She probably views it as a threat. Constantly posting about all of the hate that exists and how we need to rally against it is a great way to get your movement to move forward. Humans do well to have an enemy to rally against. It's groupism, and it's one of the most powerful ways to rally people towards a cause. It is so helpful to have somebody that we can label as our adversary. And this is true whether we're talking about LGBT, religious, political, or socio-economical conditions. We thrive off of this, and for people in the business, it helps them build their own platform. Quite honestly, there is a lot of money to be made so long as you are willing to lock into one particular side. It's easy to pretend that we want change, but is that what we actually want? Do people actually want peace? Do people actually want to even get along? Or are people more interested in getting their own way and using conflict in order to establish their power position? Now, please don't get me wrong. In no way am I trying to suggest that LGBT hate does not actually exist in real life. As a public voice, I am frequently on the receiving end of such hate. And in my experience, anybody who holds a diverse identity has those stories of the dehumanizing and hateful treatment that they have received. It occurs in our schools, in our workplaces, and yes, sometimes even in our homes. But from these activist individuals, it seems to always be about hate all the time. And this is a problem because hate used to mean something very specific. When we refer to hate, we used to be referring to contempt held towards a particular individual. See, it wasn't about the words that were used, it was about the motivation and meaning behind those words. But now, activists in the modern social justice movement have made business out of taking the hate narrative beyond contempt. These activists are perfectly happy to label any statement that conflicts with their worldview as hateful. And at the same time, these activists go to great lengths to avoid any conversation or interaction with these people. Instead, they use call-out culture and cancel culture to try to make them go away. When you do that, though, you diminish the meaning of the word hate. You desensitize people to it, and pretty soon, they don't believe that hate exists at all. Now, I did start this video by going after a particular trans activist, but I absolutely need to cut her some slack, because I can certainly appreciate why she maybe didn't see much point in responding at all. That's because I've noticed that there are many people who are in opposition to trans activists, but who are just as unwilling to have any real conversation or engagement. I saw this 2 weeks ago when I published a video walking the streets of New York City. In that video, I talked about the importance of listening to both sides and engaging with worldviews and ideas that you disagree with. And honestly, the comment responses in that video were extremely discouraging. While there were absolutely some really thoughtful comments to that video, like half of the responses were people who took the opportunity to simply restate their position that men shouldn't be in women's washrooms or transgender individuals are trying to abolish women's rights. And I'm not taking a stance on those issues because that was not the point of my video. What I found so concerning was that a video that was literally about the importance of listening to other people seemed to motivate hundreds of individuals to simply not listen to the other side and restate their position in ever stronger terms. As much as I hate to admit it, the comment that I I started on the trans activist post had the exact same effect. There were certainly some really insightful comments, but there were far more people who took the opportunity to yet again restate their grievances with transgender individuals or with transgender activism in general. Quite honestly, why would she want to respond to that? She's been in this field far longer than I have, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's become very worn down and tired of that kind of discourse. So my question to you is this: how do we get away from this and move towards a more productive discourse? How do we actually engage with those who we disagree with? And more importantly, do we even want to do that, or are we perfectly happy to continue down this path of hate on both sides that we're currently moving into? I, for one, would love to see us have more productive conversations, but in order for that to happen, people on both sides need to be willing to put down their position and take the time to build relationships and actually listen to individuals on the other side. Quick closing note. Last week, I had 3 excellent conversations with individuals on the progressive side of things. These individuals made a really good point that I have done a less than ideal job of covering the ways that anti-trans activists are also adding to complications in our discourse. As such, I have 3 videos exploring this topic, and I'm very excited to start releasing them next week. If you are more on the progressive side of things and you're interested in exploring this topic with me, I really want to hear from you. Please send me a message and we can chat.